Southeast Radio's Business Matters with Karl Fitzpatrick.
It has been referred to as the biggest company that people have never heard of. But Veolia Ireland is helping businesses throughout the country to achieve their climate goals. But how exactly is it doing this, and what more could be done in Ireland to improve our environmental performance? The Regional Director with Veolia Ireland, Declan White, joins us now to tell us more. Declan, what is Veolia and how big are its operations here in Ireland?
Thanks for having me, Karl. Veolia is a French-owned company, but we've been present in Ireland for over 25 years in one form or another. And what we are is an environmental services company, and we primarily work in the water, hazardous waste and energy sectors. So, for instance, we design, build and operate a sewage plant or a water treatment plant for a town. We also work with companies in working with their hazardous waste and how to the best way to dispose of it or regenerate it or reuse it. We also work with companies on providing energy solutions for their businesses, for keeping the facilities going or for decarbonising their energy requirements or operating combined heat and power engines. So we have 700 people working on the island in Veolia across the sectors.
And who typically are your clients?
Someone said that we're the biggest company no one's ever heard of, because it's really a business to business is our business model. So, for instance, on the water side, obviously, Ishgare as a municipal authority are our main clients, so we do a lot of work with them. And then on the hazardous waste and on the energy side, it's right across all sectors. We have pharmaceutical, 9 of the top 10 pharmaceutical companies in Ireland. We work with them. Food and bev, some of the big breweries, one of the largest distilleries. We do a lot of work with them. In healthcare, there's 2 hospitals, the Mater and St. James's. We've done large decarbonisation and energy efficiency projects in there. And in the semiconductor, the 2 largest semiconductor companies, we do a lot of work on the hazardous waste and water side with them. So it really anywhere there's a need for water solutions, energy solutions, hazardous waste, that's where we get involved.
So talk to us about the type of projects that you complete for Ishgare.
So we would have built sewage plants around the country. We built some in Castlebar, Tramore, Dungarvan, where we would have built a plant that would service the town, say, for 30,000 inhabitants. And then we've been operating them over a 20-year duration. So we build it and then we operate it for 20 years. And on the water side, we provide all the water for Limerick through Clairville, and we provide the water from Athy under a similar DBO project. We actually did a very interesting one in Osborstown where we take the sludge from all of Kildare and we put it through a process where it generates gas, and that gas then is put through an engine, and basically the plant generates a product then that gets spread on land as fertilizer. And the whole thing is energy neutral because you get the gas from the sludge, and that provides the energy to treat the waste and generate the fertilizer product. So it's a nice circular solution. But those are the type of jobs we do with Ishgare.
You're also providing services into the food and beverage producers across the country. What are the challenges facing them at this moment in time?
On the food and bev, so on some of our agricultural, a couple of very large agricultural producers where we provide energy services. So I'd say on one we have a combined heat and power engine where we take in natural gas, and they're large users of heat, and it's just a very efficient way of providing the heat where we would have built the engine or the turbine and then operated, and we have an agreed SLA with the clients on how much heat they get, and economically it works out very well, and environmentally it works out very well for them. So that's on one side, and then on the distillery and brewery, there's a real push now towards being as energy efficient as possible. So certainly in a large distillery, we've done a few water projects where we really focus on making the effluent treatment and the water treatment as efficient as possible, as clean as possible, reducing the amount of abstraction that's from the water bodies, and making sure it's as clean and as dependable and as consistent as possible. So because they need it for it's a recipe water for the products. So they're driven by consistency. They have to be sure that operations will continue. There'll be a consistent product, and also that it's, as always, trying to keep the energy and chemical usage down.
And from your insights, Declan, what are the leading companies in Ireland doing to tackle water, waste and energy management?
We had a seminar with some industry players recently, and we talked about what are the most important things from an energy management and decarbonisation point of view. And people making the point that everybody wants to reduce their energy usage, everybody wants to be more environmentally efficient. And there's a lot of regulations coming down, but it's important that there's a carrot and a stick approach, and the government have got some great grants there to incentivise and to help fund companies in investing in heat pumps and solar, even in using wind, even single-use turbines on it. So they're making the point, I suppose, is that the easier that it is to understand where all that funding comes from, and the easier it is to apply for it, it means that you're going to get more engagement from those companies in that funding. So I think that companies are what I found anyway, is that they're looking for a lot of help to understand, to navigate how you can reduce your energy. For some companies, heat pumps might be the solution. For other companies, it might be something as simple as putting in insulation, redoing your windows, just reducing your heat loss like that. So what we find that the best way to do is to get a plan down, to commit to prioritise your 8 or 9 or 10 projects, put a timeline against it, and then you seek out the funding that you can get for each project. And to not tackle it, in a piecemeal basis, but have an overall plan, because you want to stay the course. And it's only when you've got a full plan with a full suite of projects that you can see you start making a real dent in your energy usage. And sometimes, obviously, we help our clients with that in terms of project managing it, identifying the areas, and also in terms of finding out what's the best way of getting the funding, what's the best way of applying for it. So I think it's really a structured approach is the best way to go with it.
In the programme for Government and the Climate Act 2021, Ireland has committed to halving our greenhouse gas emissions by 2030 and reaching net zero by 2050 at the latest. How realistic is that in your opinion, Declan?
I think there has to be a larger change and more step changes coming up in how we actually get to those figures. Policy sets the whole agenda here for a key driver for change. So policy is coming from set by the EU regulations and then adapted into Irish legislation, and then the government adapted to policy around that, and that's what sets the incentives and the penalties to drive it. And of course, policy is set by an agreed political consensus. So I think to get a step change, if you're going to say we will greatly increase the cost of transportation diesel, is that going to be acceptable politically? So I think it's going to be some very difficult policy and political choices will have to be made to get to 2030, 2050. I think the technologies are there. It's a matter of grasping the nettle, applying the right incentives and the right penalties. But it's going to be a challenging road. But if we don't do it, I think we're going to pay a higher price in the long run.
And of course, there's a lot of talk at the moment about energy security, and that's ever before we factor in the use of AI soaring. So does the energy and water it requires actually need to be considered by government on the basis that we're going to see exponential growth in artificial intelligence over the coming years?
It's definitely a challenge. I mean, I know we're in a good position in that we have a temperate climate, so we don't have some of the cooling requirements that other countries would have. Hotter climates are not in the Irish climate, but it's still a big demand. and we still have to look at greener ways or more sustainable ways of generating that electricity for us. We're at 40% sustainable on renewable energy at the moment. A lot of onshore wind, offshore wind, but in order to keep growing that and to increase that percentage, we need to be investing in storage solutions as well, so that we have the robustness right across the network, that we can generate, store, and then that at times of high usage we can supplement with that storage. So there's a lot of and storage is a huge growth and innovative market at the moment. So it's incentivizing in the correct way those approaches.
Declan, talk to us about virtual power plants and the type of impact they could have on the grid.
In this case, it's facilities that are already built and are in place and are high power users, and they have generators on site, backup generators on site. Usually they're put in to cater for an electrical outage, so they're put in for terms of business continuity purposes. So there is a program out there where you put in some very clever software that the air grid are monitoring the usage on the grid, and when they get to a stage where they're facing some problems, they send a signal to these companies that have signed up to this scheme, and at that stage they turn on the generators, so they're getting the power for their facilities from the on-site generators powered by oil, and it just frees up capacity then in the electricity grid. So it's a good way of equalising, balancing out your power demands geographically, and it also provides it can be nice incentives for companies to engage in the scheme, in that they have the capital investment isn't a lot, because you put some nice software on existing assets, and you can start getting you're not getting benefit of them just when there's an electric outage. You're actually making getting some revenue from them.
Well, if you've just tuned in, that was Declan White from Veolia Ireland, and I'd like to thank Declan for sharing the work of the company with us this morning.
Southeast Radio's Business Matters with Karl Fitzpatrick.